Heart of Darkness is the third and final wing in the Manaforge Omega raid. It is home to the Nexus-King and Dimensius the All Devouring. The Nexus-King. This is a 3-phase boss fight with 2 intermissions. Phase 1 is about removing 3 stacks of a debuff. Phase 2 is about avoiding a bunch of attacks. The first intermission is about killing a bunch of ads. The second intermission is a DPS race. And the third and final phase relies on creating and destroying black holes. Phase 1. Once engaged, the boss will use Decree Oathbound. This is going to hit the raid and apply 3 stacks of Oathbound to everyone. The main goal is to remove all 3 stacks of this before the boss uses his Invoke the Oath ability. Anyone who still has a stack of Oathbound, once this is used, will become mind controlled and need to be burned down by the raid. To remove these stacks, the raid must stack in the boss's Conquer ability. This soak attack targets and tracks the tank, so the tank should stay still to let everyone group up. Each time you are hit by this attack, you will lose 1 stack of Oathbound and gain a debuff that increases the next Conquer's damage by 50% for 20 seconds. So the raid needs to split in half to alternate soaks. He will use this 6 times before casting Invoke the Oath, so make sure your stacks are gone. If you miss one, you'll need to soak twice in a row, so pop a defensive. The boss has one more tank tracking ability called Vanquish, which is a large frontal cone, and this also applies a 50% damage increase debuff. The boss follows the same cadence. He will use the Conquer Soak, followed by 2 Vanquishes, and then another Conquer Soak. The tank not soaking needs to position on the opposite side of the boss and taunt after the first Vanquish. Make sure to mark the tanks so that the raid can easily see where they are. As another note here, those hit by Conquer are briefly knocked up into the air, which makes it a little harder to quickly evade the Vanquish attack. Behead is the boss's other main ability. This marks a few players with claws underneath them. Quickly run to the outside of the arena, as this hits everyone in the effect and leaves behind a ground effect. Aside from that, the boss occasionally throws a dot on random players, and you need to sidestep the breath attacks that are going across the floor. A final note is that there are dragons along the outer ring, and if you get too close, they will swipe you, dealing damage, so keep your space. Phase 1's abilities. Decree Oathbound, a 6-second channel, dealing raid damage and applying 3 stacks of the Oathbound debuff. Invoke the Oath. This deals raid damage and mind controls any player that still has the Oathbound debuff. Conquer. This tracks the tank with a soak circle. Getting hit removes a stack of Oathbound and also applies a 50% damage increase debuff for 20 seconds. Vanquish. This tracks the tank with a frontal cleave attack that applies a damage increase debuff of the next Vanquish by 50% for 20 seconds. Banishment. This targets several players and applies an 8-second dot. Behead. Several players are targeted with claw marks. This leaves behind a ground effect until the next to be hit. Phase 2. At 50% HP, the boss will summon and mount his Drake, knocking everyone backwards, so make sure you don't get knocked off the platform. The main thing here is to avoid the boss's Dimension Breath ability. Netherbreaker is going to target a few players with a large circle. You want to run this away from the raid. After it goes off, it will leave behind a portal. Once the Drake uses Dimension Breath, it will not only target and track the tank, but it will expel from those portals, meaning everyone needs to be aware of the directional lines. Tanks need to be aware of the Cosmic Maul attack. This applies a stacking debuff that increases damage of Dimension Breath by 50% for 10 seconds, so swap after each use. The Behead Claw attack is still present here, so handle that accordingly. Phase 2's abilities. Coalesce Voidwing. This is the transition that triggers at 50% HP, that does raid-wide damage and a knockback. Netherbreaker targets a few players with a large circle. It explodes, leaving behind a portal effect where Dimension Breath will shoot from. Dimension Breath targets and tracks the tank. It also shoots from portals that are placed around the room, shown by lines. Cosmic Maul. This is the tank buster. Deals physical damage and applies a debuff that increases damage done by Dimension Breath by 50% for 10 seconds. The first intermission. At 40% HP, the boss will become immune and summon a group of ads on 2 different platforms. The raid needs to split in half and head to their assigned gateway. On LFR, the raid is auto-split, so just head towards the gateway that you can see. At the gateway, use your extra action button and you'll teleport to the platform. The Manaforged Titan is the most important mob here because if they reach 100 energy, they explode, pretty much wiping the group. Netherblast is an ability that can be interrupted, so make sure you're rotating kicks, and aside from that, just avoid all the line effects, rotating, beams, and circles. Once all the ads are defeated, return back to the platform where Phase 2 resumes. The second intermission. At 25% HP, the boss will jump off of his Drake and become immune to damage. This channel will last for 30 seconds, where the boss is absorbing the Drake's HP to heal himself. The raid must burn down the Drake as much as possible to keep the boss from healing too much, so it's the perfect time to lust. The only thing to watch out for here is the claw attacks that will be appearing across the room. Phase 3. This is the third and final phase. The boss will use Galactic Smash, which will target a few players, including the current tank. These players need to relocate to the mid-outer ring of the arena and opposite of each other, as once this detonates, it strongly pulls all players towards it, trying to consume them before it leaves behind a dark star. This Dark Star is going to send out rings from its location, which must be avoided. Do not touch the Dark Star in the center, otherwise it will insta-kill you. The next attack from the boss is Starkiller Swing. This targets a few players and the active tank with a line. Once cast, it will hit that player, dealing damage and destroying any Dark Star in its path. So players need to line up with the Dark Star in order to remove them. This process then repeats until the boss is defeated. Tanks need to be aware that each time they are hit with Galactic Smash or Starkiller Swing, they get a stacking debuff called Star Shattered. This increases the damage of each Star Shattered attack by 50% and lasts for 40 seconds, so swap after 2 of these. Phase 3's abilities. Galactic Smash. This targets a few players with circles. These circles will create a Dark Star and applies Star Shattered to the tank. Starkiller Swing. This targets a few players with a line. This attack destroys any Dark Star in its path. Dark Star. A black hole that pulls any close players inside. It insta-kills anyone that touches it and sends out waves of spikes that must be avoided. These also deal a burst of raid damage when they are destroyed. Star Shattered is a stacking debuff applied with each Galactic Smash and Starkiller Swing. It deals physical damage and increases damage of the next Star Shattered by 50% for 40 seconds. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Phase 1. Swap after the first Vanquish. Phase 2. Swap after each Cosmic Maul attack. Stay still for Dimension Breath. The first Intermission. Grab and group up the adds. In Phase 3, make sure you're placing and destroying stars. Swap at 2 stacks of Star Shattered. Healers. Phase 1. Expect increasing bursts of damage with consecutive Conquer Soaks. Make sure you remove your 3 Oathbound stacks. In Phase 2, expect constant pulsing raid damage, and those hit with Netherbreaker are going to take a large burst of damage. During both intermissions, you're just going to expect constant pulsing raid damage. In Phase 3, anyone targeted with the Galactic Smash or Starkiller Swing will take a large burst of damage. Keep in mind that when a Dark Star is destroyed, it deals a large burst of raid damage. DPS. In Phase 1, stack for Conquer to remove your 3 Oathbound stacks. Make sure you're dropping claws away from the raid. In Phase 2, be mindful of where you're dropping your debuffs. During the first intermission, make sure you're cleaving all the adds, but prioritize the Manaforged Titans so that they don't reach 100 energy. During the second intermission, make sure you do big damage on the Drake to reduce the amount of healing the boss gets. Phase 3. Be mindful of positioning for dropping Galactic Smash and when aiming the Starkiller Swing. Dimensius. This is a massive 3-phase fight with a flying intermission. In Phase 1, you'll gather mass from adds to survive the boss's Devour ability. The intermission will have you flying through space to 2 different platforms. Phase 2 is a race to kill 2 mini-bosses while the boss throws chunks of the world at you, and Phase 3 is a DPS race where you'll use safe zones to survive a new version of the Devour. Phase 1. There are 2 gateways that lead to the boss. As soon as one player takes a gateway, the boss fight begins, so get everyone into position and use a countdown timer to ensure a smooth start. The boss platform is a half circle around the boss, and the raid needs to be split into 2 groups, one for the left side and one for the right side. Positioning is very important for this phase, so let's cover the main mechanic first. When the boss reaches 100 energy, he tries to devour the raid. Anyone devoured is instantly killed. In order to prevent this from happening, the raid needs to create a collective gravity zone, which is created when at least 2 players stack together with excess mass. Excess mass is an orb that's dropped by the living mass adds, and these adds are spawned by the boss. Kill the add, it drops an orb, a player runs over it and then picks it up. If those 2 players stack, they create a zone that prevents the boss from devouring anyone inside. So now let's go back to positioning. When you first visit the platform, there are 2 adds, one on the left and one on the right. The raid is going to focus these guys down ASAP except for the tanks. The primary tank is going to immediately grab the boss and head to the center of the platform. Every melee attack the boss does will knock anyone close by up and backwards, so it's vital that tanks stay away from the 2 sides. After the adds go down, 2 people need to grab this excess mass. Shortly after this, the boss will start his Devour. The entire raid needs to run to the center of the platform where the tank was and stack to create a gravity zone. Once Devour is finished, the raid needs to go back to the original sides while the active tank remains in the middle. After a few other attacks, more adds spawn, and for the second Devour, both sides can stack where they are. So you'll have a group on the left side and a group on the right side. If you're hitting a third Devour, the entire raid will need to meet in the middle of the arena in order to survive it. Reason being is that the boss has a growing hunger buff that stacks with each Devour. If this number is larger than your collective gravity buff, then you can't negate the pull. Alright, now let's cover the rest of the mechanics. Massive Smash is the tank buster, and you're going to want to swap after each hit. This places a large ring around the tank, and once used, knocks the entire raid backwards, so make sure you're not standing too close to the edge or you'll get knocked off. This also spawns the living mass adds. They can't be tanked, they just deal random damage to players. Shattered Space is going to mark 2 circles on both ends of the platform. You want to stay away from these for now. Once spawned, it will send out a bunch of circles that need to be avoided, but each side then needs to quickly move and stack inside of this antimatter zone in order to remove it. It deals 2 big bursts of damage every 5 seconds, and that damage is dependent on how many people are soaking this zone. Reverse gravity is going to target 2 players on each side. You need to move to the back edge of the platform, as this is going to launch you into the air and move you towards the boss. Players with excess mass need to stand underneath of these players in their circle in order to pull them back down to safety. This reverse gravity is not present on LFR. Dark Matter is his last minor ability. This just places circles around everyone, so space out accordingly. Phase 1's abilities. Devour. The 100 energy attack consumes any player that is not in a collective gravity zone after 5 seconds. Living Mass, these are the adds that spawn and they deal random damage to players. Collective Gravity is a safe zone created when at least 2 players with excess mass stack on top of each other. This negates the Devour pool. Massive Smash. This is the tank buster that knocks everyone backwards, summons adds, and applies a 100% damage increase debuff to the tank. Antimatter. These are large spheres that last for 10 seconds, and they deal massive raid damage every 5 seconds, but that damage is reduced based on the amount of players soaking the attack. Fists of the Voidlord. This is the boss's melee attacks. They cleave anyone that's close by, knocking them up into the air. The Intermission. When the boss's health is depleted, you will be pulled into space. After the brief pep talk by Xal'atath, you will be able to mount your flying mount. If you don't mount up, you will fall into space and die. Once mounted, you'll fly through the rings to the first platform where you'll fight a mini-boss. There are things that can kill you while flying, but if you're flying straight from one ring to another, you'll be fine. After you beat the first mini-boss, you will again mount up and fly through more rings to the next mini-boss. As a final note, there is a stellar core below the mini-boss's platform that if you collect will reduce the mini-boss's HP by 5%, but only one person can grab these so you can't stack it. Phase 2. You will land on 2 platforms when flying, and each platform has its own mini-boss. You must kill these guys before they reach 100 energy, otherwise it's a wipe. Positioning and awareness is extremely important here. The mini-boss is going to summon a cross of adds that divides up the platform. Everyone needs to be on the side that's closest to Dimensius. On the first platform, that will be to the east if you're looking at the minimap, and on the second platform, that will be to the north. The raid needs to quickly burn down the first Voidwalker ad that's next to the center circle. This will allow the raid to move left and right on the platform, which is crucial for avoiding the boss's first attack. Dimensius will raise back one of his arms. Whichever arm that is, you need to quickly run to the far opposite side of the platform. This is the only telegraph for this attack. He is going to throw a large chunk of the world at the platform, and it will kill anyone hit. The safe zone here is small, so pay attention. After this, the raid needs to quickly burn down the next Voidwalker ad that's closest to the circles, which allows the raid to move up and down. Once dead, the entire raid needs to run to the closest point towards Dimensius, as he will do a very strong pushback, trying to knock everyone off. Those Void Warden adds do nasty damage, so you want to make sure that you have a safe lane to move through. Aside from that, the 2 mini-bosses only have one ability. The first has a frontal line attack that needs to be sidestepped, and the second puts a ring around him that deals damage to anybody inside once it explodes. Tanks do need to be aware that their melee attacks apply a stacking debuff called Touch of Oblivion, and if it reaches 15 stacks, you're insta-killed, so make sure you're taunting at around 10. This debuff is not present on LFR, so you can just focus on moving them around. Just a final note on the Void Warden adds, when one dies, it fully heals the other adds near them, so make sure you're focusing the main target down. Phase 3. The final showdown. At the start, Dimensius will be stunned and take 50% increased damage for 15 seconds, so pop Lust. The raid will again be avoiding his Devourer attack, but this time you'll be using the Void Stars that are rotating around him. Standing underneath of one of these Void Stars will negate the Devour pool, but keep in mind that they do not stop rotating, so make sure you're still moving with it. The boss will use Supernova, which turns one of these Void Stars into a black hole. You want to run away from this as it's happening, as it deals less damage the further away you are. Those black holes continue rotating around the room with the other Void Stars, so make sure you're paying attention for Devour. Touching a black hole will insta-kill you. The other main mechanic here is called Darkened Sky. Dimensius calls down 3 large objects that smash into the ground. These are staggered impacts, and that's important. You want to avoid the circle, but once they crash down, it sends out a Shadowquake ring from the impact zone. Each time you pass through a Shadowquake ring, it deals damage and applies a stacking debuff that increases the next ring's damage by 100%. This debuff lasts for 3 seconds. So you want to pass through the first ring, wait 3 seconds, pass through the second ring, wait 3 seconds, and then pass through the final ring. Cosmic Collapse is the tank mechanic, and it's shown by a ring, so make sure you're staying away from everyone and taunt after each use. Tanks also need to be aware that this debuff does not fall off, so the longer this fight goes, the harder this is going to hit. Aside from that, the boss occasionally puts an 8-second dot on players that slows your movement speed. Phase 3's abilities. Destabilized. The boss takes 50% increased damage for 15 seconds. Extinguish the stars. This creates 8 void stars that will rotate around the boss. These generate gravity wells, which negates Devour. Supernova. The boss destroys a void star, and this deals ray damage that decreases the further away you are. Darkened Sky calls down 3 large objects that kill anyone if hit, and then sends out a Shadowquake ring from each impact zone. Shadowquake rings deal damage and apply a stacking debuff that increases Shadowquake damage by 100% for 3 seconds. Cosmic Collapse. This is the Tank Buster, which deals damage to anybody inside, and applies a stacking debuff increasing cosmic damage by 150%. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Phase 1. Stay in the center of the platform, swap after each massive smash. In Phase 2, keep the mini-bosses close to the Void Warden adds for cleave. Pay attention to where Dimensius is and which arm he's using. In Phase 3, swap after each Cosmic Collapse, and keep in mind that this debuff does not fall off, so plan your cooldowns accordingly. Healers. Expect constant pulses of raid damage throughout every phase, as most of Dimensius' attacks hits everybody. There is plenty of downtime between each phase transition and the flying areas, so mana will constantly be refilling. Because of the downtime, make sure you're actively using all of your cooldowns. DPS. Phase 1, kill living mass adds quickly for their orbs, and help soak antimatter. During Phase 2, burn down the targeted Void Warden adds very quickly. Pay attention to where Dimensius is and which arm he is using. In Phase 3, pop all your big cooldowns at the start to take advantage of the 50% damage increase. Stagger your Shadowquake ring hits and actively use your defenses. Congratulations, you just cleared the final wing of the Manaforge Omega raid. Shout out to these channel members. If this video helped them, press the thumbs up. Subscribe if you enjoy WoW content. Become a channel member for 99 cents a month. It gets you early ad-free access to all my videos. Also check out my Prefessional merch. I'll see you in the next one.